Let me ask you something. If money isn't your master, why does it control your decisions? Why does it dictate your dreams, your peace, even your marriage? The reason most people never experience financial freedom isn't because they don't make enough. It's because they were never taught how to manage like the 1%. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly how the world's wealthiest think about money differently, and how you can apply the same principles no matter what's in your bank account. Right now, most people are taught to think in terms of addition when it comes to money. Go to school, get a job, earn a paycheck, and slowly add to it. A little more here, a little bonus there, maybe a raise next year. That's addition. It's the slow path. It's the survival mindset. And it's why the average person can work 40 years and still struggle in retirement. But the wealthy, 1%, don't play that game. They think in multiplication. They don't ask, how can I earn more? They ask, how can I multiply what I already have? This mindset shift changes everything. See, the difference between the rich and the rest isn't just income. It's outlook. While the average person is asking, can I afford this? The wealthy are asking, will this multiply my capital? It's not about working harder, it's about thinking smarter. Multiplication is about leverage. It's about taking what you have, time, money, relationships, skills, and putting it into vehicles that increase its value. A person who thinks in terms of addition tries to save $100 per month. A person who thinks in multiplication asks, how can I turn this $100 into $100? And here's the truth. The opportunity to multiply is all around you, but if you're stuck in an addition mindset, you'll never see it. You'll walk right past a partnership. You'll ignore a business idea. You'll avoid investing because you're afraid of losing what little you have. That fear keeps people poor, but multiplication starts with faith. It starts with believing that the same energy you're using to survive can be redirected to create overflow. Let me give you an example. The average person makes $500 a month. They pay their bills, save a little, and hope for a raise. If they get one, that's addition. But what if they took just 10% of their income, $500, and learned to multiply it through a skill, a side business, or an asset? Maybe they learn digital marketing. Maybe they buy and flip products. Maybe they write an ebook. That $500 doesn't just sit there. It starts multiplying, and over time it returns $200, $500, or even more. Now they're making money not because they added effort, but because they multiplied value. This is how the 1% thinks. They ask, what can I create once that pays me over and over? This is how they look at books, courses, businesses, even investments. One action, many returns. That's multiplication. That's why some people can earn more in a week than others do in a year, because they set up systems that multiply. Even in conversations, the wealthy think in multiplication. They know that one relationship can unlock a new level. One meeting can open a door. That's why they protect their time. That's why they invest in coaching, masterminds, and environments that stretch them. Because they know one idea, one strategy, one insight, multiplied, can produce exponential results. Now, here's what you have to understand. Multiplication doesn't always start with money. It starts with mindset. Most people think, if I had more money, I'd invest. But the 1% became the 1% because they invested when they didn't have much. They didn't wait for more. They worked what they had. They treated their money like a seed, not like a paycheck. You don't eat seed, you plant it. And what you plant in faith will multiply if you tend to it. Let's go deeper. A person who thinks in addition sees $100 as a buffer, something to hold on to. A person who thinks in multiplication sees $1 Zero. 0 as seed capital. Something to plant into a business, an investment, a brand, and even if it fails, they don't lose. They learn, because failure in the hands of a multiplier is feedback. It's fertilizer. That's how they grow faster. That's why they recover quicker. That's why they build wealth. While others build excuses, it's not about having it all figured out. It's about refusing to think small. When you break out of the addition trap, you realize that time is limited, but multiplication is limitless. You can't keep adding hours to your day, but you can multiply your income per hour. You can multiply your impact per effort. You can multiply your reach without multiplying your stress. If you think like the 1%, and here's the reality, you were created to multiply. It's in your design, but the system trains you to be a consumer, not a creator. It teaches you to wait on permission, not to walk in purpose. You don't need more degrees. You need more decisions. You don't need more approval. You need more action, because once you decide to multiply, everything changes. Your habits change, your circle changes, your language changes, and your money follows your mindset. Don't ask for addition, ask for multiplication. Stop playing small with your purpose. Start thinking like the 1%. They're not smarter than you. They're not better than you. They just believe something different about money, and now so can you. Most people wake up every day and go to work for money. They clock in, they clock out. They trade hours for dollars, labor for paychecks. It's the system they were taught. Go to school, get a job, work hard, and retire someday if there's anything left. But that's not how the 1% think. That's not how the wealthy operate. They don't work for money. Money works for them, and that one shift changes the entire game. When you work for money, you become a servant to it. You go where it tells you to go. You wake up when it tells you to wake up. You take jobs you hate, tolerate bosses who disrespect you, and make decisions from a place of survival. Your time isn't your own, your peace isn't protected, and your potential stays trapped. But when money works for you, you're the master, and money is the servant. You send it out, and it comes back multiplied. You decide where it goes, how it flows, and what it funds. This is the difference between earned income and passive income. Earned income is what you get when you work. Passive income is what you receive whether you work or not. And here's what the wealthy understand. Earned income may make you rich, but passive income is what keeps you free. Because freedom is not about having millions in bank. It's about no longer depending on your labor to live. The problem is most people are caught in a trap. They work just enough to stay afloat, and they spend just enough to stay broke. They think more hours equals more income, but that's a lie from the pit of mediocrity. Time is limited. Energy is limited. You can't multiply yourself, but you can multiply your money. That's what the 1% do. They use money to buy back time. They use money to buy options. They use money to buy freedom. Let's be clear, the wealthy still work, but not the same way. They work on ideas, not just jobs. They work on assets, not just assignments. They work to create systems that keep making money long after they stop. The poor and middle class earn income. The rich build income streams. It's the difference between digging a ditch every day and building a pipeline once that delivers water for life. You see, the wealthy understand the power of ownership. When you work for money, you get paid once. But when you own something, real estate, a business, a brand, you get paid over and over. That's money working for you. That's why they invest. That's why they buy assets, not liabilities. Because every dollar they earn, they see as a soldier. And the goal is not to keep the soldier safe in a savings account. The goal is to deploy the soldier so it brings back more soldiers. Most people never get to this level of thinking because they're too busy trying to survive. They've been taught to be consumers, not creators, but the 1% think like architects. They don't just build income, they build infrastructure. Their money is in motion, and it's always on assignment. It's working while they sleep. It's working while they vacation. It's working while they pray, think, and create. That's not magic. That's mindset. You don't need $1 million to think this way. You just need to stop treating money like a paycheck and start treating it like a partner. Every dollar you spend, ask yourself, is this helping me live, or is this helping me grow? Is this making me feel rich, or is it making me free? Because freedom comes when your money is no longer tied to your time, and that starts with intention. The 1% also understand that your value is not in how hard you work, but in what you know and how you use it. They learn high-income skills. They develop intellectual property. They license their work. They build systems and brands that create cash flow. They write a book once and sell it forever. They film a course once and get paid every day. That's money working for them. That's leverage. That's legacy. Here's what you need to realize. If you're always working for money, you'll always be one step away from panic, one missed paycheck, one medical emergency, one layoff. But when money works for you, those moments don't shake you. They strengthen you because your income isn't tied to your effort. It's tied to your wisdom. You weren't created to spend your life chasing money. You were created to use money as a tool to fulfill your calling. But if you never learn to flip the script, you'll stay stuck in a system designed to keep you busy, not wealthy. The 1% don't run from work. They just make sure their work creates wealth without requiring their constant presence. They think long term. They plant trees they won't have to water forever, and in time, those trees produce fruit that funds the next level of impact. So don't just work for money. Build something that makes money work for you. Learn the skills, build the systems, think like the wealthy, because the moment you stop chasing money and start commanding it, that's the moment you break free. The difference between people who struggle with money and those who multiply it often comes down to one simple principle: stewardship. The 1% understand the law of stewardship deeply. They don't treat money like it's theirs to own. They treat it like it's theirs to manage. This law is spiritual, practical, and powerful. It says that what you faithfully manage, you are qualified to multiply, and what you mismanage, you are guaranteed to lose. Most people want more, but they can't handle what they already have. They ask for overflow, but leak the little that's already in their hands. Stewardship is the test before increase. It's not about being perfect. It's about being purposeful. The wealthy don't wait until they're rich to manage well. They became rich because they managed well from the beginning. Whether they had $1, 100 or $1, 100, 0, euro 0, they treated every dollar like it had destiny. You see, when you steward something, you give it direction, you give it purpose, you give it assignment. Most people let money sit, or worse, they let it disappear through emotional spending and careless habits. But the 1%, they give their money a job. Every dollar has a mission. Some go to grow, some go to give, some go to guard, but nothing goes nowhere, and nothing stays idle. Stewardship is also about accountability. The wealthy know they are responsible for how their resources are used. They don't blame inflation, the government, or their upbringing. They take ownership of their choices. That's why they track what comes in and what goes out. That's why they study money, learn strategy, and stay focused. Because they know that mismanagement of money is more dangerous than a lack of it. If someone gave you $10, 0, 0, 0 right now, the way you handle it would reveal your mindset. Would you spend it fast? Would you hoard it in fear? Or would you allocate it with wisdom? That's the difference between a spender, a saver, and a steward. A spender thinks short term. A saver thinks safety. A steward thinks multiplication and meaning. The law of stewardship also teaches that you are never really the owner. Ownership leads to entitlement. Stewardship leads to humility. The 1% live with a sense of trust. They've been entrusted with resources, and their job is to increase them. Whether it's money, time, relationships, or influence, They understand it's all temporary, and they treat it with the care and strategy that produces growth. That's why you'll often find the wealthy deeply involved in budgeting, tracking, reviewing, and refining. They are not casual with capital. They are intentional with it. They don't throw money at problems. They position it for progress. They don't overspend to impress people. They invest to impact the future. That is stewardship in action. Think about it this way. A farmer doesn't eat all the seed. A good steward doesn't consume everything they receive. They know some of it must be planted, some must be saved, some must be shared. It's a cycle of responsibility, and when that cycle is honored, increase becomes inevitable. But when it's broken by greed, ignorance, or neglect, loss follows quickly. Another layer to stewardship is delayed gratification. The wealthy understand how to say not now, so they can say yes later without stress. They don't buy based on emotion. They buy based on alignment. If something doesn't align with their values, goals, or strategy, they pass. That's discipline. That's stewardship. And that's why their money lasts. It's not that the 1% don't enjoy their money. They do, but they don't waste it trying to prove something. They don't use money to cover insecurity. They use it to create security, freedom, and legacy. They know that every financial decision has a ripple effect, and they make decisions today with tomorrow in mind. Many people are praying for increase, but heaven responds to management, not just desire. Stewardship qualifies you for more. If you can't manage a little, more will crush you. But if you steward a little with excellence, you will be trusted with much. That's not just financial. That's universal. It applies to opportunities, relationships, ideas, and influence. So when the 1% build wealth, it's not an accident, it's the fruit of stewardship. They didn't stumble into success. They honored the law of increase by honoring the law of management. They practiced consistency over chaos. They built systems instead of reacting emotionally, and in doing so, they created a foundation strong enough to handle overflow. Stewardship also invites generosity. When you manage well, you can give well. You're not afraid to bless others because you've already set structure around your own resources. The wealthy understand that hoarding blocks flow, but strategic generosity keeps the financial river moving. They don't give from pressure, they give from surplus, and that surplus came through stewardship. At the core, stewardship is not about money, it's about mindset. It's about how you see what you've been given and how you handle what you have. The 1% became the 1% because they stopped acting like owners and started living like stewards. They didn't wait for millions to act responsibly. They acted responsibly and became qualified for millions. Most people are taught to automate their bills so they don't forget to pay them. It sounds responsible. It feels safe. But that's the problem. It keeps people stuck in survival mode. The wealthy don't automate bills. They automate wealth. They don't set systems in place just to make payments. They set systems in place to produce profits. That one shift makes all the difference. While most people are building routines around lack and liability, the 1% are building routines around income and increase. The average person gets paid, and before they even touch the money, it's already gone. Rent, car payments, credit cards, subscriptions. It all disappears automatically. They don't think about it because it's set and forget. But the truth is, when you automate bills first, you're letting expenses eat first. And if your expenses eat first, your future will starve. The wealthy reverse the order. They make sure their money goes into wealth, building before anything else touches it. Investing happens first. Saving happens first. Growth happens first. Only then do they allow the bills to be paid. This is what's called paying yourself first. But the 1% don't stop at the principle. They build systems around it. They don't just decide to invest. They automate the investment. They don't just intend to save. They automate the savings. It's not about willpower. It's about structure, and structure is what separates the financially free from the financially frustrated. Think about it like this. If you automate your bills, you're automating maintenance. If you automate your wealth, you're automating multiplication. And what you automate will dominate your financial life. So if all your automation is tied to paying off yesterday's decisions, you'll never have margin for tomorrow's vision. The wealthy understand that automation is about priorities. Most people automate what's urgent. The 1% automate what's important. They know that if you don't intentionally direct your money will be consumed by everything except your future. So they build systems that push their income into assets, stocks, real estate, business ventures, intellectual property, before the lifestyle decisions show up. Let's get practical. The average earner gets paid and has an auto draft for rent, utilities, phone bill, car note, and maybe Netflix. The 1% gets paid and has an auto transfer into investment account. They have recurring contributions into retirement or brokerage accounts. They fund their business every month without thinking. They automatically direct money into things that produce return. Then, and only then, do they deal with expenses. That's not neglecting responsibility. That's honoring purpose, because if you let expenses dictate your wealth strategy, you'll never build anything. There will always be something pulling at your income. The moment you get a raise, new expenses show up to meet it. That's why the rich don't rely on discipline. They build systems. Because systems keep building even when motivation fades, this is how wealth becomes inevitable. When you automate wealth, you're not relying on chance or bursts of inspiration. You've taken the emotion out of the process. The money moves whether you feel like it or not. That's consistency. That's power, and over time, that turns into freedom. A small investment automated monthly over 10 years becomes 6 figures for many people. But most people never get there, not because they didn't earn enough, but because they never built the habit. Even giving is automated for the wealthy. They don't wait for a moment of generosity, they systematize it. Why? Because giving is part of their wealth strategy. They understand the law of circulation. What you release, you increase. What you cling to, you curse. So even generosity is structured. Even overflow is planned. People will spend hours every week budgeting bills, watching due dates, and reacting to expenses, but they'll spend zero time building a system for income growth. That's backward. The wealthy front load their systems so the back end is smooth. They build in peace and flow, not chaos and fire drills. Their accounts grow while they sleep because they've already made the decision once. And let automation take over. Wealth is not the result of giant leaps. It's the product of small, intentional, automated steps done over time. Most people are so focused on reducing bills that they forget to increase wealth. But the 1% never make that mistake. They look for leverage, for compound growth, for automation that works in their favor. They understand that every dollar should be assigned a mission. If you don't give your money direction, it will find distraction, and distractions are expensive. The truth is, you can't build wealth consistently if you have to manually make the decision every time. Life gets busy, emotions fluctuate, but automation brings stability. It's not just about discipline, it's about default. When wealth becomes your default, when investing is automatic, when saving is non-negotiable, when giving is built in, that's when you start to see momentum. So while the world is setting up auto, pay for liabilities, the 1% are setting up auto and invest for legacy. They've decided they won't just live on what's left over. They'll build on what comes first. Because when you automate wealth, you put your future on autopilot, and that's how freedom is created. One automatic transfer at a time. Most people see debt as a trap, and for many it is, because they use it the wrong way. They use it to buy things, not to build things. They use it to impress, not to invest. They use it to feel rich instead of becoming wealthy, but the 1%, they use debt like a tool, like a lever, like a strategy. They don't fear debt, they master it. They don't serve debt, they make debt serve them. That's the difference between the wealthy and the struggling, the way they view and use debt. The average person borrows, consume, credit cards, car loans, vacation payments, furniture financing, all of it for things that lose value the moment they're bought. It's not that the item is the problem, it's that the item doesn't return anything. There's no cash flow, no growth, just another monthly payment that drains their future, so debt becomes a chain, and month after month, they're working harder just to stay above water. But the 1% use debt to create. They borrow money to build income-producing assets. They use other people's money, banks, investors, partners, to create systems that generate cash flow. They buy rental properties, they launch businesses, they invest in marketing, infrastructure, technology. Every dollar of debt is pointed towards something that brings more dollars back. That's not a burden, that's leverage, that's financial intelligence in action. It starts with mindset. Most people were never taught how to think about debt. They were taught to avoid it entirely or to use it emotionally. But the 1% were taught strategy. They don't ask, can I afford the payment? They ask, will this generate a return? That one question separates the consumer from the creator. Because anything you borrow for that doesn't make money will eventually cost you freedom. But anything you borrow for that builds income can actually accelerate your freedom. This is why wealthy people have large amounts of debt and still sleep peacefully, not because they're reckless, but because the debt is tied to cash flow. They've structured it smartly, they've positioned it to produce, and most importantly, they've managed it with discipline. They don't let debt control them. They control the terms, they understand interest. They understand timelines. They understand how to exit or scale. They have a plan before they take the loan, not after. Here's a powerful example. Someone borrows $30, zero to buy a luxury car. It feels good, looks good, smells good, but it depreciates every day. That same person could have used that $30, to acquire a small piece of income-producing real estate or start a service-based business. One gives status, the other gives freedom. The wealthy always choose freedom first and let status follow results, not the other way around. Even when it comes to personal development, the wealthy are not afraid to use debt if it leads to increase. They'll take out a loan to join a mastermind, hire a mentor, buy into a business coaching program. Why? Because they understand that the right knowledge applied can yield far more than the cost of the loan. That's not foolishness. That's faith plus strategy. They're willing to temporarily carry debt if it gives them access to a skill, a system, or a network that leads to permanent elevation. The key here is control. The wealthy don't just use debt. They direct it. They calculate risk. They anticipate returns. They never go into debt for things they can't explain. If they can't see the outcome, they don't take the loan. That's wisdom. That's discipline. They study the terms. They negotiate the rates. They build an exit strategy before they sign the dotted line. Debt is not emotional. It's mathematical. If the numbers make sense and the plan is clear, they move. And because they think this way, the 1% never stay stuck. They know that access to capital is a growth accelerator. They don't wait until they have all the cash in hand. They move when the opportunity is hot, and they use debt to seize it before it's gone. That's how they scale fast. That's how they build when others hesitate. Fear keeps most people locked in place, but clarity plus strategy unlocks movement, and movement is where wealth is made. Debt can be a servant or a slave. The person who doesn't understand money becomes a slave to debt, but the person who understands money makes debt serve them. It becomes a powerful ally. It becomes a bridge between vision and manifestation, but only if it's used wisely, only if it's used to build, not to buy. Most people will spend their entire lives paying for past decisions. The wealthy spend their lives investing in future outcomes. That's the difference, and it's not about how much you make. It's about how well you manage and multiply what you have. Debt, in the hands of the disciplined, becomes a tool for freedom. In the hands of the careless, it becomes a trap. So don't be afraid of debt. Be afraid of misusing it. Be afraid of staying stuck in consumer thinking. Be afraid of letting debt dictate your destiny instead of designing your future. Because when you learn to use debt to build, not to buy, you step into the mindset of the wealthy, and that mindset is the first step toward financial freedom. Most people chase prosperity without ever asking why they want it. They pursue wealth, status, and success without first getting clear on their purpose. That's why so many people gain money but lose themselves. They reach financial milestones but still feel empty inside. They achieve what they thought they wanted only to realize it doesn't satisfy. The wealthy, the truly successful 1%, do it differently. They align with purpose before they ever pursue prosperity. For them, wealth is not the goal, it's the tool. Purpose is the blueprint, and prosperity is the building. That follows. When you lead with purpose, everything else falls into place. You stop hustling for validation. You stop chasing money out of fear or ego. You begin moving with clarity, intention, and peace. The wealthy don't just wake up and grind. They wake up guided. They know who they are, what they're called to do, and who they're called to serve. That alignment fuels their focus, sharpens their strategy, and attracts the right opportunities. Purpose is a filter. It helps you say no to what doesn't serve your assignment. It helps you avoid distractions that look good but aren't good for you. It keeps you grounded when the pressure rises and doors start to open, because not every open door is your door. Not every profitable idea is your purpose. If prosperity comes without purpose, it becomes poison. But when it flows through purpose, it becomes power. The 1% don't build wealth just to have more. They build it to do more. Their money has a mission. It's connected to impact, legacy, and service. That's why they stay motivated long after the initial goals are hit. That's why they bounce back from setbacks quicker. They're not fueled by greed. They're anchored in calling. They know that money doesn't define them. Meaning does. And when you're clear on your meaning, money becomes magnetized to you, because value follows vision. Purpose also brings sustainability. Many people burn out because they're grinding in misalignment. They're chasing someone else's version of success. They're building based on pressure, not passion. But the wealthy build with joy, with conviction, and with endurance, because they're building what they were born for. When your life and your money are both aligned with your purpose, your work becomes worship. Your business becomes your ministry. Your income becomes a byproduct of the impact you make. Let's be clear, the 1% are not passive about money. They are strategic, aggressive, and intentional. But their strategy is rooted in something deeper. It's not just about getting ahead, it's about fulfilling destiny. That's why their wealth is sustainable. That's why their influence lasts, because it's tied to something eternal. They understand that purpose isn't just a nice word. It's the foundation of everything they build. Purpose gives you power in moments when money can't. There will be seasons where the return isn't immediate. There will be times when the vision looks bigger than your current capacity. But if you're aligned with your purpose, you won't quit. You'll stay in the fight because you're not just building for yourself. You're building something that matters, something that lasts, something that serves others. That's the mindset of the wealthy. They're not just playing for profit. They're playing for purpose-driven prosperity. Purpose also brings confidence. When you know what you're called to do, you stop competing with everyone else. You stop copying trends and start creating impact. You move differently, you speak differently, you invest differently, and people can feel that clarity. They're drawn to it. Purpose is attractive, and in business, clarity of purpose leads to clarity in branding, messaging, and leadership. It's not just personal, it's profitable. This is why the wealthiest people in the world are often the most purpose-driven. They understand that success without purpose is shallow. They'd rather build slow and aligned than fast and empty. They'd rather grow something meaningful than chase hype. They don't rush success. They prepare for it, and preparation starts with alignment. Before they launch a business, they ask, does this solve a problem I care about? Before they partner with someone, they ask, are we aligned in mission and values? Before they scale an idea, they ask, does this still reflect who I'm becoming? That level of intentionality is why their wealth carries weight. It's not just about money, it's about meaning, it's about contribution. The truth is, prosperity that's not rooted in purpose will always leave you craving more, because money can buy experiences, but it can't buy fulfillment. It can open doors, but it can't give you peace. Only purpose does that. Only alignment brings the kind of wealth that satisfies both the bank account and the soul. The 1% figured this out, and now it's your turn. When you align with purpose before you chase prosperity, everything changes. Your mind changes, your habits change, your relationships change, because now you're not just making a living. You're creating a life that matters. And that's what real wealth is all about.